went on primetime yesterday and he told you to call your senator and you need to know what he's really asking for. He said, how easy is that unless you want to cheat? What it does is shut Americans out of our electoral process. The SAVE Act says that you have to prove citizenship in person and your driver's license won't count. You need a passport or birth certificate. Got married and changed your name? Now your documents don't match. This bill kills online registration. It kills mail-in registration and voter drives. And Trump wants to severely restrict who can mail in their ballot too. And here's how you know what he's really doing. Trump said literally that this bill would guarantee the midterm. So this is not about election security. He's trying to stack the deck. The SAVE Act has passed the House and it is currently stalled in the Senate. He wants you calling. So yes, call, but tell them to vote no on the SAVE Act.
Most important.
Okay, before we listen to him, will the bill pass? That's the question that a lot of people want to know. A lot of people are asking because it has passed the House, but will it pass the Senate? Because that is a part that is uncertain at this point. But Trump is coming up with strategy and manipulation that makes it look like he want to force it down our throats. He's saying things like he's not going to sign any other bill. I think I stumbled upon a video where he said something like, he's not going to sign any other bill until this bill has been passed and has been signed. Now, I don't feel like that makes a lot of sense because a lot of senators doesn't support, even some of the Republicans did not support this bill. And to a large extent, this bill has some flaws and has some clauses that needs to be corrected. For instance, some of the requirements would make citizens find it difficult to vote. Legitimate citizens find it very, very difficult to vote. Okay, but I will not say much. Let's listen to him first so that then we can drive our conclusion from this matter.
Importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because you.
Now, this is my problem. Why would you say the only reason they don't want to do it is because they want to cheat? Like, why on earth would you say they want to cheat? This is the same electoral process that brought you into term. This is the same election that you did, the same method, the same principle, the same process that brought you into politics, into presidency, the first time and the second time. So why would you say that they want to cheat? It would mean that you also, you know that you cheated your way into power. And this is his words. This is his words. And you being at the end of government saying statements like this just shows that there's an ulterior motive to wanting to sell this act for us to accept. Like, why do you want to sell it to us? Pass the act. Like, to what end? To what end? The same process that has been invoked for this long, and you want to, like, all of a sudden come from nowhere and say, okay, we have to. But let's continue.
Policies are so bad, and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together, we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before.
I'm here to speak about the so-called Save America Act, which I think
Hmm.
probably would be better described as the Steal the Next Election Act. You can imagine why they would want to engage in special weapons and tactics to try to win the 2026 election when you see the political disaster that they're enmeshed in, the mess.
Hold on. Now, this is very serious, this area of, I feel like the reason why some of these things are being done, because I personally believe that there's an ulterior motive to this thing. Because if there is no ulterior motive, if Trump wants the good and wants to make America great, like he said, he won't be forcing this down our throat. Because make it make sense how you want this bill to be passed in the next 2 months because of midterm election is coming up by November, and you want this to be passed. And I feel like the reason why you want this to be passed is because of, you know, that already your party is shaking. There's a lot of problem with the Republican. Judging from the death of Graham, there's a lot of shakiness. So you want to make sure that you have a way to tighten your loose end, because that's what it looks like. You want to tighten loose ends and ensure that at any cost you would retain power in the Senate. And that is just the problem. That is just the problem. Because you want to make sure you retain power in the Senate. And it's not going to work. American people are wise at this time.
That the Trump administration has made of the economy, the stench of corruption pervading the administration, a war that is running up gasoline prices and has no end in sight and no evident plan. Wherever you look, you see a party in complete disarray. And so this whole scheme gets cooked up, marketed falsely as some civic safe voting proposition, when what it really is a scheme to influence elections so that the creepy billionaires behind the Republican Party can continue to control the decisions that get made in this town. That's what this is about, plain and simple. This is no small thing, and if you want to know what the motive is, just ask the people who are running this. We just want to make sure the right people vote. We'll never lose a race for 50 years if you pass this bill.
Are you seeing the mindset? This is exactly why I feel like this act is just a front. You understand? It looks good on paper, but bro, I feel like there's an ulterior motive to this thing. There is a way it wants to ensure that. But at the same time, this is just voters. You are suppressing the rights of the voters. Our constitutional rights, you're suppressing it. Like, it's
Will
crazy, man.
guarantee the midterms, that is using the power of government to put the fix in, to fix the elections that choose who runs the government.
Crazy.
That is
Crazy.
about as un-American as it gets.
I have been trying to explain for nearly a year that
This is a Republican senator, by the way. You see, so even the Republicans, some of the senators don't accept it. And many people feel like, okay, he's saying this today because he wants to get favor to run the next time. But I beg to differ. He's not saying that because of that. He's retiring or something, but he's saying it because of this truth. Listen to him without bias.
the SAVE Act, whether it's the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, the new SAVE legislation that's being proposed in the House, SAVE goes to Hollywood, SAVE goes to Hawaii, whatever the sequels are, all of them are fundamentally flawed and impossible to implement by this election. We should figure out a way to get every state to get to voter ID. We should put in grants that say, if you hit this threshold, we will help you implement the implementation. And if you don't, we're going to spend that money to audit your elections. That's fine. That's good governance. And that's given the states the option to decide whether or not they want to up the ante and increase the integrity of their elections or expect an audit from the federal government if they don't. That is what I would be advising my client. This is what I'm advising my client right now, the President of the United States, like CEOs that I've advised before. Mr. President, these people are misleading you if they're telling you that this can be implemented by November. The only thing that will occur is an undermining of the election integrity, the integrity of our elections right now. So, folks, from North Carolina, our state motto is esse quam vadere, to be rather than to seem. This seems like a legit proposal, but it isn't. And it hasn't been for the last year because you couldn't have gotten it done with 10,000 election entities if we'd passed it last July. Let's stop the charade. Let's stop the distraction. Let's get the government funded. Let's use reconciliation if we need to, but let's not clog it up with another piece of policy airdropped by a member of this Senate or the White House that will undermine this bill, undermine what we need to get done before the election. And so, Mr. President, the fact is, we're not going to have 10,000 people doing things radically by Election Day. What we're going to do, if we continue down this path, is to convince the American people that you can't count on your election results. And that is dangerous. That is irresponsible. If you see voting improprieties in your state, report them. There are tools right now to investigate them. But don't further undermine the confidence of the American people by saying, my goodness, they can't get this implemented, the election must be invalid. That is not America that I signed up, that is not an America that anybody should sign up for. We got to do it right, and we've got to do the work. So, Mr. President, if I see a reconciliation bill come from the House with another failed attempt to confuse this election, I will use every device I have available to slow down the wheels of government until people cop a clue and do that.
So, first of all, the reason I wanted to come here today is just to give a message of unity to my fellow Republicans. We've accomplished a lot together over the last year and a half, but we've got to stick together and accomplish at least one very...
JD is doing all his best to convince everyone to believe this thing. Now, the thing is, I feel like this is just a distraction. I feel like this is to shift the focus. The truth is, the Republicans have lost already. Like, you guys have lost the midterm. And I don't want to believe that all of these things are ways to suppress voters. And if it is, it's not good because you're literally tampering on the constitutional rights of every voter. And that is bad. Well, let's continue. Let's slowly continue. I feel bad. I feel broken, not because of I don't love Trump. I love Trump. Understand? But then it doesn't mean that there's certain things that he does that aligns to my belief at the same time. So, because I'm a Christian and there's some certain rules and regulations that I do not accept. One of them is this. I feel like this Save Act is good, is okay, but the conditions at which to tighten the election is flawed. Because how would you just make it make sense to me how you would say that this process that brought you into power is bad because you did not win the last time, bro.
Big thing for the American people, which is the president's priority, the White House's priority, the entire Trump administration's priority is to actually get the Save America Act passed. We have the proudest and in some ways the oldest democracy anywhere in the world. 250 years we just celebrated, and yet if you vote in California, you're lucky if a month after the election day, your vote has actually been counted. We know that we have, in certain jurisdictions, illegal aliens who are casting ballots. We know that 80+% of the American people want you to show a voter ID in order to vote, and yet there are a lot of big blue states that make that impossible, will in fact criminalize the act of asking for an ID in order to vote. Why would you criminalize asking for an ID in order to vote unless you wanted to encourage and promote cheating? So this is an important priority for the administration, but more importantly, it's an important priority for the American people to save our elections. The way you save America is by bringing election integrity. It's something that matters. It's a shame that the Democrats aren't going to help us get this done, given that a majority of Democrat voters actually want us to have election integrity in this country. But we've got a good piece of legislation to support the troops, support the farmers, and get Save America Act passed. This, of course, is the first step, but it's an important step. We're going to take it together. We're going to be successful, and we're going to keep on working at it from there.
Will the administration?
See. There is this thing that I said that is pissing me off, because truly, they're not doing this because of the American people. They're not doing it because of them. They are doing this because they know that if they lose control of House and Senate in midterm election in November, they are gone. They are literally gone, because their bills will be blocked. Cabinet appointments will become very hard to confirm. And technically, the entire presidency is gone, because his agenda will slow down drastically. He will not be able to implement certain things. Look at going into war. You just went into the war without the approval of the Senate. There are certain things that should not be done, which he did. This war of a thing. No, some wars are, even though you are a president that says you don't want to bring war, there are some wars that you cannot close your eyes to, right? You cannot close your eyes to, but there are some wars that are unnecessary. Just to prove my God. And this midterm is what will decide how the president has governed the United States in the past 2 years. This midterm, we will know by the votes, because, and I know for sure that this will not pass. This will not pass. Honestly speaking, it will not pass.
Support the results of the midterm elections come November, regardless of what they look like?
Well, look, of course, we're going to support the results of the midterm elections. We think we're going to win, but ultimately that's up.
They would. Funny enough, he said he thinks he will win. Funny enough, even if he wins, they will criticize it. They will say they were rigged. It's always the same thing.
The American people, but we also think we have to do everything that we can to discourage cheating. Because you will hear Democrats sometimes say, and I love this line, I can't help but laugh at it, cheating isn't that frequent in American elections. Any frequency at all is a problem. A single ballot cast illegally in an American election is, in fact, the theft of the ballot from another American citizen, from an American citizen who deserves to be able to vote. So you're right. You know, the elections, in some ways, the process is already getting started for 2026, but you don't pass a piece of legislation because you think you're going to immediately benefit from it. You pass a piece of legislation because you think the American people are going to benefit from it over the long haul. We have to do it. Save America is not mainly about 2026, to your question. It's actually about saving America's elections well into the future.
Now, I'm going to close with this. I wrote something down here that I'm going to close with. I said, I support technically, so you know my perspective. I support requiring proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. Election integrity is important, and Americans should have the confidence that only eligible citizens can vote. That's first my support. Now, at the same time, we need to implement the law in a practical way. If a married person, because that's a problem. I just did not post the video, right? That's the problem, because the law makes it difficult for a married person to vote. Once you're married and you've changed your name, it becomes a problem. You change your name from what you were answering to, then you now expect me to go and start looking for my birth certificate. Probably it was lost. Probably there's a bonfire. Probably there's something that's happened to my birth certificate since 1990s or whatever. And you want me to go and start looking for it just to prove to you that I'm a citizen. Like, make it make sense. So at the same time, we need to implement a law in a practical. We need to implement the law in a practical way. If a married woman changed their last name, or a veteran doesn't have easy access to a birth certificate, the government should provide a simple, affordable way to verify citizenship. This is what the Senator Thomas was saying. Like, literally, you need to find a way to make it easier. You need to find a way to make it easier. This is what makes you the president. You're not going to try to force it down the people's throat. People are literally complaining about this. How you can hinder them and limit them. You're going to find a way to make it easier for them. My concern in all of this state, my concern in this is that, is it well designed? Not about if it is strict or if it is weak. Because at the same time, I feel like there is an ulterior motive in this bill. So Congress should not say, oh, push it to the side and say, oh, let's abandon this rubbish. But they should rather look for a way to fix the bill, fix something inside the bill, not just abandon it. Because at the same time, the focus of this bill, the main focus of this bill, if it's what it is to protect American votes and to ensure that every individual can vote. Because the goal of this election, the goal of this bill, and the goal of every American is so that their vote can be counted and it's going to be free and fair, regardless of any fraud whatsoever. Now, JD said something that makes sense that I kind of accept. He said something about frequency. Now, if we accept it that there can be sometimes fraud in some cases where non-voters can cast vote, or sometimes votes can be miscalculated, there is that frequency of those error. If this act can manage, if this act can manage that issue, then I feel like it's a good one. But at the same time, I'm not going to accept the fact that Trump is literally criticizing the same process or electoral process that brought in because he wants to create an electoral reform. Thank you.